Most of the top chess players are, in fact, and I actually recall an interview with Magnus Carlsen, and he was saying that, you know, if he's not in competition with other people, he's in competition with himself. And I'm going to get really excited here because my favourite opening is on the board. It is called the Carlsen, and thank you for playing it.
And if we have a rewind to last month's Charity Cup final between these two, the Carlsen actually made quite a big impression there. Both players played the Carlsen as black, and it's not necessarily part of their normal repertoire. Magnus only delves into the Carlsen occasionally, but when he does, it tends to be with some ideas behind it. Remember, Magnus Carlsen's 125-game unbeaten streak in classical chess, that was ended by Duda. And Magnus played the Carlsen in that game that he ended up losing. So not great memories necessarily for Magnus Carlsen in the Carlsen against Duda. And meanwhile, the two knights variation, as we call it, because white brings two knights to the centre. And now the move that Ivanka suggests in her book, as I recall, bring the bishop out. Nowadays, there are other ways for black to play, but this bishop move, very solid one.
It's not just me, actually. Erwin Lamy, in his chessable course, also recommends this.
Yeah, I've always been reluctant to play this move as black. I've played it a few times in my life, but
you love the
gives away the bishop pair.
Yeah, you love the bishops.
And,
and Magnus loves the bishops as well, doesn't he? Generally, I mean, he much prefers having the bishop pair.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So Magnus has parted with the bishop pair. He's traded off his light squared bishop for a knight, so that's a fair trade. But note how Magnus has put all of his central pawns on light squares. Here we're just about to see another trade of pieces. But yeah, black's central pawns at least are on light squares to try and make up for the fact that he lacks a light squared bishop.
Ooh.
And yeah, I don't think it's anything too serious necessarily to worry about. White has an advantage here for sure because he has the bishop pair, and black's knight will struggle to compete against that light squared bishop long term. But Duda pausing meanwhile. Is he just going to recapture this pawn?
Maybe there's
he can bring his queen across to another square.
Yeah. Well, it looks a bit silly actually. I was thinking the queen goes to the dark square to hit G7, stopping black from developing. But I am a bit surprised the evaluation bar's gone so mental there because it doesn't look like there's anything big in this position. How can there be?
Black has done nothing wrong so far.
No, black hasn't. Well, it's not the most common response, actually, to relinquish the tension in the centre so early. Normally, black kind of develops knights and kind of leaves the position a little bit more tense. And here, I mean, black's position is very, very solid. But one kind of downside I see with black is that when you think about the long term, when you think 10 moves down the line, it's only really white who is actually going to expand with the pawns, kind of has the kind of straightforward plan. And I have to say, as much as I love the Carlsen, not necessarily a fan of the way that Magnus has played it. It's a little bit too defensive for my liking. And queen takes pawn on the board. And now Magnus offering a trade of queens, which I think is very instructive, actually.
Yep, it's very sensible here to trade off the queens. However, bishop pairs, they do gain a lot of power in the endgame as well. The more pieces disappear, the more influence bishops have. And we talk about the bishop pair a lot. White's dark square bishop doesn't look too impressive right now, but it will eventually get into the game. White has ideas of pushing pawns maybe on the left side of the board. I remember a really instructive win by Nigel Short, an English Grandmaster. He actually, in a very similar position to this, he just moved the white rook in the corner across one square and started pushing the white b pawn forward just to undermine black's pawns on that left flank. And Magnus definitely listening to music. He's maybe played the least ambitious Carlsen I've ever seen, but he's enjoying it. And OK, just pushing a pawn forward there. And look, this is a very Magnus type of move, pushing his pawns forward to stop the idea I mentioned of white's pawns marching forward on that left side of the board, gaining space with his pawns.
And can I share with you some selfies? Because AO Vox says that this is the best start to the weekend. And they've finally got their hands on my book on the Carlsen. And now, you can get it signed. Well, you just have to,
We'll find a way.
Yeah, we'll find a way. And
I've got my copy signed, Ivanka, I remember.
Oh, do you?
Did I sign your copy?
You did. You said, to my favourite Grandmaster.
Oh.
Sorry, Simon.
Truth comes out. Can I be your favourite ginger Grandmaster?
You can, you can.
Thank you.
And whilst the players are kind of developing their pieces, we also have a tweet from Jon Frederick Talk, who is watching the show from Paraguay and also cheering for Magnus Carlsen. And again, Vignesh is watching the show from Hyderabad. And he says that their sons, AJ and Ishan, are glued to the match that Prague was playing. So yeah, it's so great to see where everyone is watching the show from, and just everyone enjoying the fun. And there the players are playing some moves very quickly, and Magnus improving the dark squared bishop.
Not digging the music anymore. He's looking a little bit more focused.
Looking very serious, and I think he's just confused about what Duda's done. And to be honest, I hate what Duda's just done on the last couple of moves, because he has just completely given away the dark squares. Look at that black dark square bishop. It controls anywhere the white rooks really want to go. Black's dark square bishop is a thorn in white's side, and the only way to get rid of it is to trade off a set of bishops, and
you can never
no more bishop pair. A bishop against the knight alone, you can't control both colour complexes.
I think this last game's probably affected Duda. The fact that Magnus went one f3, it might be a very clever, I kind of called it a gangster move, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of a rude but like psychological move. You're playing a match, you play this move, you get into your opponent's mind, and they're thinking, why can't I beat one f3? And you saw him do it at the end. He didn't want to do the interview, he wanted to go straight to his room. And it might just been a very clever, it's a match after all, a very clever ploy to put him off, you know?
Big psychological blow if your opponent plays a move like that, an opening like that, and you can't win. That being said, wow, what is Magnus doing? Maybe a good move, but a surprising one. He's just trying to bring his king to the c7 square. He's not castling, but he's doing what we call castling by hand. He's just moving his king across the board, and he can do that because it's an endgame. There aren't that many open lines for the opponent. White now bringing his rook across. He does want to push the d pawn forward one square, so I'm expecting Magnus to maybe try and stop that, but yeah, it feels like Magnus, he's just kind of freestyling. He's just doing what he wants because he's very comfortable in endgames in this type of position. And the reason as well, I should just explain strategically why I don't like what Duda's done on this left side of the board is, if you've got a light squared bishop and your opponent doesn't, put your pawns on the opposite colour. Your bishop will do its own work on the light squares, put pawns on dark squares. And OK, he's finally put a pawn on a dark square, Duda, but shaking his head, that's because Magnus is gaining all the space now on the queen side. Throwing pawns.
I mean, you can clearly see, can't you, David, from the look on his face. Look at it, he's not happy at all. I mean, I think Magnus has got into his mind. Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. I mean, like, that is not a happy Duda. Happy dude. So, you know,
looks psychologically not broken, but flustered at the very minimum.
Yeah.
But this is the beauty of the fact that we're actually watching him play live on the esports arena.
He can't turn the camera off.
Yeah, he can't take. We can actually see how he's suffering and how he has to kind of dig deep, use grit, and try to recover. Because this is not the ideal start to this game, especially with the white pieces. He hasn't got what he wants. Magnus has done everything right. Look at him. Magnus is just taking all the space on the left side of the board. It's his favourite thing in the world. And Magnus's position is just awesome, actually.
Yeah, it is. I think black's just better here, isn't it? I mean, with some chances to open up the A file, the black knight could now be a very nice piece coming in. And there's a lot of holes in the position. You can see where the black bishop is. That's a real square under Magnus's control now. So it's Magnus will be happy the way this has gone, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very Carlsen type of position, just a stable endgame, everything protected, where he can easily improve, easy plans. It's not a Duda type of position. There are no real imbalances, no real attacking chances, no real creativity here. I think objectively he needs to just retreat his bishop, white's bishop on the edge of the board, retreat it back one square, trade off bishops, and then just try and lock things down, try and survive for a draw. I think Duda needs to just save this game, move on to the next one. Maybe hope that Magnus plays f3 on move one again. But I think if Duda if he's on tilt, as we say, and just emotionally can't recover, he'll bring his bishop back 2 squares, and he's not looking happy.
No.
I think he can't play for the win in this game anymore. He just needs to go on the defensive and try and survive and bring it to game 4. OK, he's doing that now.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've noticed a lot of the top players are very good at, even if they're very depressed and he's not happy, is he? They're very good at, like, shutting up the shop. You know, they realise, like, you know, if I keep going, I'm going to lose. I have to change gear. And I think other players, you know, like myself, I'm very bad at changing gear when I need to. If the tide's going against me, I will still keep pushing, which is just a big mistake. I need to, like, you know, suddenly defend. And these players can do that very well. But you still play Magnus, you might be a bit worse. So it's not fun.
And that's the thing. Sometimes the only way to shut up the shop is to go passive, to go defensive, and it's nobody's instinct, especially against the world champion. Going passive, it's no guarantee of a draw. Playing for a draw is sometimes the worst way to get that result. But yeah, it's just what he needs to do. He needed to get rid of Black's really strong bishop there. And still a lot of work for Carlsen if he wants to win this game.
So it's dramatic for Jan Christoph Duda. If Magnus wins this game, it's over. He will be the winner of the match. The situation is the same between Jürgen van Foreest and Pragnananda. If Prag, up by 1 point, wins this game, then he will be the winner of that match. But look at the bar, all the way over to Jürgen van Foreest's side. Maybe he is about to make a comeback to tie that match after 3 games. We'll keep a close eye on that. Mamedyarov is up by 1 point in his match against Liam Le. Game 3 has started. Anish Giri and Erik Hansen, they have played 2 draws so far. They are tied. The bar slightly maybe over to Anish's side in Game 3. We'll, of course, keep an eye on that as well. But it's looking very good for Magnus Carlsen. A draw in this game with the black pieces is a great result. And he only needs a draw in Game 4 in that case.
Yeah, with the white pieces, I think Magnus, if he only needs a draw, he'll play something a bit more solid than we saw him play in that last game.
Like any move.
Yeah, any other move on F3. I mean, that was one of the most classic interviews that I've ever seen in chess. Just saying he wanted to play F3 to switch things up.
Yeah, so he had some ideas.
Yes, it might work well for him. Yeah.
And okay, as expected, Duda has to fight for the dark squares. He's only got a light square bishop now, so he does put a pawn on a dark square.
Yeah,
that white rook on the second rank wants to switch over to look at the black king.
I thought Magnus might have prepared some knight move. That's why he put his rook there on the last move to stop this idea. But I don't know if the black knight can come forwards now. That's the first thing you look at here, some tactic with it. And okay, it hasn't. It's gone for the more solid option.
It's gone to a safe square. Simon, you were mentioning it can jump to maybe this square or this square. Just attacking the white rook, utilising a really nice tactic. If the pawn takes the knight now, then the white rook is actually undefended and it would fall to the black rook. So using this pin, it looks like you're hitting this rook now, but I think the white rook just moves and maybe this pawn.
I think actually this kind of move, like you've just demonstrated, David, moving the knight there, is a real common mistake that a lot of lower rated players will play, because it's an artificial move. Yeah, it looks aggressive, it looks like it does something, but you're not really seeing far enough, and it just ruins your position, it makes your position worse. Even though it seems semi-aggressive, it just backfires. And the move that Magnus played, much more classy, got long-term idea of bringing that into the centre.
That's right. One-move tricks are nice sometimes, especially in speed chess, but I mean, this is the top level. You can't just hope that your opponent will fall for your idea. And yeah, as you mentioned, often just putting pieces on good squares is the wiser option until you feel it's the right moment, until your opponent's off balance, and then you can go for those types of tricks. But this knight's just on a good square. And if we do see, for example, pawn takes pawn, then suddenly this pawn is a backward one. It's eyed up by the black rook. It's never going to move really. And yes, white can create some threats, for example, against this pawn in front of the black king, but at the very, very minimum, black can just block the diagonal of the white bishop. And that's why, again, that was a great square for the knight, a great route into the center of the board. And even if we see a trade here, it's only black who can ever be better, because white has an isolated pawn, a backward pawn, and black's king is nearer the action, nearer the center. So Magnus still pretty confident. I'm not sure he's going to win this game, but a draw, as Kai mentioned, is a decent result for black anyway. And he looks ready to get that one at the very least.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Magnus will be very, very happy here. I mean, to me, it's like a dream position for a Caro-Kann player. You know, we thrive on those small little details. Despite all this, I'm actually a big picture person. I never liked little details. This is why I was not very good at law, because it was all about those fine little moments, those fine wordings, and I was like, no, I just wanted to get it done. But as a Caro player, I'm used to those small little things that kind of eventually become bigger advantages.
Yeah.
I actually thought that the clocks hadn't started, because I looked at Magnus's time and I thought, oh, 15 minutes. The clocks are wrong. But he just hasn't spent any time. So it's like, which is quite strange, right? You know, he's playing very natural, very quick. And as I think David mentioned, this is his element position where he's got a slight advantage, easy moves to play, put the pieces on the best squares.
Yeah, and I think it's just because it's his type of position. We talk about style a lot, but if you're in a position that you recognise the pawn structures, if you have a lot of experience, you can just pure instinct. You barely need to pause to think, and zero calculation in this game so far.
Have you ever been in this position, David, or move whatever it is, and be like on the same time you started on?
You know the answer to that one,
I
Simon.
do, yeah.
I've never had more time than I've started with.
No, a big NO. So
I'm sure David had more time than he started when he played against me. I made
Maybe
a
once
mess
in
of
my
the
life.
whole thing.
wow.
But okay, well, whilst we're waiting for the players to make a decision, I do want to share with you a selfie from Nancy, who says, even an asthma attack can't stop me watching from the beautiful Colorado Rocky Mountains. And yeah, that sounds quite dramatic, yeah, worrisome, Nancy. So do look after yourself, and we do hope that you can provide some entertainment at the same time. And a big hello. And if you do want to send your selfies or your questions, or tell us who you're cheering for, and whether you're enjoying watching Magnus play some fine chess or
dig some music,
yeah, then do tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps.
Definitely. And I wish I knew the songs. We have to get that feature in to actually be able to see the song they're listening to, all the players.
What kind of music does you said you made him a music list? What kind of music do you think Magnus will be listening to?
Yeah, I can't take credit for making the music list. That goes to Askill.
Oh, Askill, right, okay.
But yeah, it was the songs that I was kind of dropping into the commentary, the song titles at least, that I was dropping into the commentary last season.
One Night in Bangkok.
Yeah.
Which
Right,
you
that's
would
on
have
the
thought
list.
we would have noticed, but I didn't.
No.
Right, okay, oh, very crafty.
Gangster's Paradise, there's a few.
Oh, was this a little trick? Right. Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you got in like, what, 40 songs or something like that?
Oh, that's really impressive, actually.
And I mean, Magnus, it depends on his mood. I mean, I don't think he's as much a fan as techno as Eric Hansen, the chess pro. But yeah, techno on occasion, some rock, some pop. And okay, Duda, meanwhile, after a long think, sliding his rook across, similar idea to the one we pointed out. He's trying to line up against the black king. But okay, black just solidifies everything. That black rook now defends a couple of pawns next to it. Slightly surprised we didn't see the black knight jump into the center. But okay, this one's pretty solid as well from Carlsen.
He does really like those 90s hits, right?
Yeah, he's very good at music quizzes. And when we do karaoke, it's not just that he knows the songs, it's the fact that he always knows a kind of fun kind of piece of trivia about the song, about who wrote it, or about the year it was published, year it was released. And yeah, it's just crazy memory.
Impressive.
Crazy memory.
Yeah. I wonder what kind of music Jan-Christoph Duda would listen to. What should he listen to right now? He needs to get fired up and, all right, if this is a draw, to find a way to win the next game. What music would be good to listen to?
I don't know whether it's an advantage to listen to music. You know, obviously Magnus likes it, he enjoys it, he thrives on it. Eric Hansen's another one. But for most of us who are not used to playing chess with noise, I mean, it can be a bit distracting, especially if you have one of these cheesy songs in your head. The last thing you need is like something, I don't know, some kind of poppy disco thing.
How about classical music?
Yeah, I like classical music.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to movie music, like sometimes like Hans Zimmer.
Oh, that's
and
so
you know,
nice.
something like that in the background, and you feel like, yes, I'm going to play this move with the utmost of drama. This is my moment. Yeah.
That's what I would listen to as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do you play the moves like, you know, like your like Kaduna show? Oh yes.
But, yeah,
Or move
well,
the mouse maybe. With
I have to move the
lovely
mouse,
little...
which you can't quite do right
No,
now.
well, you could do a nice grand gesture. You know, so.
Be a new title in chess, conductor. No grandmaster anymore.
Chess conductor.
And, okay, one move by Duda doesn't change anything. Magnus just thinking now, is he going to plonk his knight into the center of the board, just shut things down?
Could he sort of start playing on Duda's clock? So, you know, it sounds like on you guys that this is very drawish, this position, but the fact that Jan-Christoph has a lot less time on his clock.
Yeah, and drawish maybe, but it's kind of minimum drawish for black.
Okay.
I think white is the one fighting for the draw, and okay, very clever move there by Duda, however. Black's rook's lining up on white's central pawn, and white's rook now stepping up to hit black's pawn on the side of the board. I was going to say, it's not just the clock times, but Magnus, despite the fact they're kind of playing on computer screens, he could just kind of take a peek over at Duda to check out the body language. Duda shaking his head will have been noticeable, surely. So there's still that kind of element of reading the opponent, and Magnus, he knows the style of all of these players in this tournament, but he is very good at reading body language. He became #1 in the world basically by grinding people down, tiring them out.
And also he played poker recently, didn't he? It's a
he
big
played
poker competition, which
he can bluff
Yeah.
people. He reads people so well. So
Yeah.
We should
if he
mention
just looks
that,
over
right?
at Duda, then he'll know he's in charge.
yeah, well,
Magnus participated in the Norwegian Poker Championship, but only, what, like a week or two ago?
Yeah.
And he did really well.
yeah.
Is he an expert on poker?
I mean, I think he's very
looks
good.
like
for
it,
the
yeah.
most. And I hear also the reporter as European champion as
Yeah,
well. So we have quite a lot of
Sverre,
poker.
our reporter out in the lounge, he's an amazing poker player.
impressive.
And well, apparently so is Magnus. I think he ended up in 25th place.
25th, and I think 1,000 odd players started. And yeah, I mean, some of the hands he was bluffing with, oof. Yeah, he reads people better than anyone. And yeah, some impressive players as well. Yeah, hopefully he doesn't switch to poker full time, but
Yeah.
he definitely could if he wanted to.
But what a multi-talent, right? Chess, obviously, fantasy, Premier League, where you also have to sort of analyze a lot, and poker, apparently.
And
Yeah.
sport as well. He's
Yeah.
very good at sports.
And okay, at least the game now, the position is starting to take shape. The Black Knight kicked away from the centre, attacked by this pawn. I'm expecting it to jump into White's half, into the White position, to the C3 square. But then the White Rook on the 5th rank can come across and grab, is it Alice or Anna, the A pawn?
Alice in Wonderland.
Harry.
No, not Ari.
Harry.
Alice, the A pawn. So
Harry.
White's Rook is going to go across and grab a pawn. The Black Rook's in the centre on the D file will grab the D pawn, but it will just be a trade. And to be honest, I feel that helps White somehow instinctively. Then again, the Black piece is very, very active, very centralised and well coordinated as well.
Yeah. I think, I mean, some of the weaknesses are going to be removed from the board here, which probably favours White.
Yeah, both sides will lose weaknesses.
Yeah, and maybe White's rook is going to get a little bit active. So it may seem this move Duda play, bring the rook up into the centre, was a very good way to maybe even equalise the position somewhat. Doesn't mean it's going to be a draw, but equalising, I think.
Yeah, it feels like maybe Black had more accurate ways to put pressure on, or kind of at least to kind of stabilise and kind of prolong the tension in order to let Duda run low on the clock before taking action. It feels like Magnus kind of rushed things slightly, and Duda looking less uncomfortable, less unhappy than he did earlier. Okay, Magnus is about to push a pawn to attack White's rook in the centre of the board, but that entails risk, and there we go. He does push that pawn to attack the White rook. Is the White rook going to move? That's the question. Or can you even capture the Black Knight? We saw that in game 1 today between these two. Magnus was the one who actually gave up a rook for a knight. We could see Duda do the same.
It's tempting.
Very tempting.
It's so tempting. Capture the knight. And suddenly...
And the fact the evaluation bar jumped meant that maybe there was an opportunity. Is it this one? The White rook now going for different targets, but the Black Knight very active. What do you think, guys? Is White's rook going to capture Harry the H-pawn, or is it going to capture Alice the A-pawn? White's rook has a choice of both. Many.
I mean, I think Magnus has taken some risks, right? I mean, he didn't need to play this way. He still wants to win this game, clearly, by doing this. And he's offering up, he's allowing the White rook to become very active. So it could backfire, possibly, this one. And if I was White, I'd probably go for the H-pawn, I guess. So, but it's not clear.
You just want a Harry of your own. And,
I just want to get rid of the Harry and then queen my Harry.
Now, one thing I should mention as well, knights are really bad at stopping flank pawns later in the game. So if, for example, that White rook on the right half of the board does go up and capture a pawn, then if it comes to a pawn race, if all the rooks disappear later, Black's knight might not be so happy. Yeah, I'm just surprised, as you said, Magnus taking risks.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to in this situation. He's a point up in today's match.
I would capture Alice.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's actually not possible to grab the centre pawn because there is a check along the 7th row. So you have to take some time out to defend against that.
Should we have a vote, guys? Simon thinks Harry is going to drop.
Alice.
You think Alice?
Not Harry, because
Harry.
then it has to
Harry.
be Frank.
Kaya, what are you going to vote for? Is White going to capture the H-pawn or the A-pawn?
You know what I mean?
Well,
Harry?
Simon said that he really liked to get the H-pawns off the board to get that open line, so I'll vote for Harry then.
Yeah, that's the one. We'll go
Yeah.
Harry. And
I'll go
David?
for Alice too, so 2 votes each.
Oh,
Okay,
get
who's
ready.
going to be correct?
Whose move? Is Magnus's move, so I guess...
No, it's Duda's
Duda's move now, right?
Duda
Sorry,
has
yeah.
under 3 minutes. He's got to
Okay,
make this
right.
this decision.
Do we...
Alice!
It's
Yes, Jovi.
Critical error there, throwing the game away.
If Duda loses now, we'll retrace our steps to
we
this
know where we
moment.
went wrong. So,
And, okay, Magnus actually goes to attack that
yeah,
white
this
rook.
is the move I was worried about. I thought the white rook now might.
It was a bad move.
But yeah, it was a terrible move, you know. So,
But the white rook can actually just move over
yeah, it can
and
do.
start
Yeah,
attacking Harry again.
or you can go to C pawn as well.
Yeah, you
It's
can get a
maybe,
bit fresh there and play that move. Yeah.
which is probably quite okay. He's gone back. He wants everything. He wants the A pawn and the H pawn,
Okay, maybe you'll be right now. Maybe that pawn will
Yeah,
drop
it is.
too, and all the pawns falling,
and then we all win.
and then
Yeah.
we all win.
Yeah, that's fair,
Everyone's
that's
a
better.
winner.
Everyone's a winner.
Harry's gone as well.
I like your simultaneous movement there. We need to make a
gift.
Yeah, exactly. True.
Everyone's a winner.
I mean, we're getting excited, but the players, they're cold as ice. They're stony-faced. They're just in pure calculation mode. So Duda, he's just thinking, okay, I'm going to grab as many pawns as possible. Magnus is a pawn down now, so maybe he's going to start trying to infiltrate with his rooks. The black rooks can come down, maybe give a check first. Maybe they can trade off white's defender, this white rook on the second rank, and black can start going for white's pawns on the left flank. It's become a race. Whoa, he goes passive instead.
Yeah, I mean,
Defensive move.
he could have gone all in there, couldn't he, by doing what you said, David? But this is a more, maybe he's just trying to move his king forwards first and improve a little bit before. He's got this up his sleeve, I guess, the black rook coming down.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you mentioned white. White is now pawn up, but it's easier for black to play, I think, this position. I'm looking, I mean, what you do is white here. Black can move forwards and push a little bit.
Yeah, one of black's rooks can also go to the A file, which has been vacated now that black's pawn there disappeared, and you can go after white's remaining A pawn, which is a backward pawn. Black's knight on a great outpost, so yeah.
Maybe G5 as well. Maybe get rid of one pair of rooks.
Exactly.
Because even the ending, you're a pawn down, maybe it's going to be a very good ending.
Yeah, if you can get rid of white's
Maybe.
active rook and leave white with the passive rook,
Yeah.
also white's bishop not really participating right now, then yeah, it's not going to be easy. So maybe white has an advantage objectively, at least according to the computer there, but in practical terms, it's not easy at all, and especially
Time
under 2
situation.
minutes.
Under 2 minutes.
Yeah, under 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, I really do like black's position, but like you guys say, you know, white has to do something dramatic, and I'm thinking
doubt.
create.
When in doubt, push him.
Harry.
Just push
and
him.
I was just going to say that, you know, try to create a pass pawn, and the pass pawn, the one that's unchallenged, that's Harry, and get them motoring. That's
Yeah,
your compensation.
makes a lot of sense.
It's a race.
Well, I mean, that pawn could be very dangerous in a lot of situations. I mean, the G pawn is tied down, the one next to the white rook. So if black loses that pawn as well, then could be a game winner,
That would
that
be
H pawn.
disaster for Carlsen if the black G pawn disappears. So
Kind of changing my evaluation here. I'm kind of thinking like, well, I don't really know actually, but I kind of think like white is certainly doing okay as well here.
yeah, it feels like
No worries. Yeah.
maybe easier for black to play, but not that much risk for white, because white's extra pawn, even if it does fall, it will take it. Yeah, there we go. The most obvious move in the position, bring his rook across. Even if that white A pawn falls, black needs 3 or 4 moves to go and kind of make any progress from there. And white's bishop activating itself.
Yeah, very nice move. And he can also push Ari again if he wants to, but he's trying to get the bishop in the game with this last move, break down the blockade. The evaluation bar going a little bit up and down there, but
I wasn't a big fan of that move, just because I was a little bit obsessed with the idea of trying to do something, push my pawns in a harmonious way on the right side, if I were playing white.
Now we
This
saw-
way, nothing.
And then we saw a pre-move by Duda. We just zoomed in on Duda's screen. He had captured that pawn beforehand in anticipation of Magnus taking that pawn. A safe pre-move, safe pre-move as we call it, because that was the only scenario where white's bishop would have ended up on this G4 square. And black's rook just doing a defensive job, guarding 2 pawns. What's Duda going to do now? Is he going to go for your move? Push.
I mean, I would push the H pawn if I could on the side of the board because you create a threat. You just want to push it, you know, all the way up.
Yeah. The only risk, kind of with that move, if you push the H pawn 1 more square, is that white's rook actually lacks escape squares.
Yeah.
So you're kind of banking on the fact you can continue pushing that white pawn forward. Another option would be just improve the white king, but that feels a bit slow. Okay, he retreats. So yeah, this square wouldn't have been available if you pushed your pawn forward.
So maybe a nice move because he's
flexible.
trying to centralise. There is another weakness that black has, which the white bishop is pointing in that pawn. So why not gang up? Magnus gets rid of that weakness.
Look at this. I mean, it's really intriguing strategically. Both players have ideas, but Magnus, he's taking time out to stop his opponent's ideas. Feels like Duda's trying to create. Magnus is saying no. Duda tries something else. Magnus says no. And it's just about whether Duda finally gets kind of his bishop to an active square or gets his rooks attacking pawns. If Magnus can continue kind of rebuffing all of Duda's ideas, then Duda will get frustrated. And 1 minute now, Duda needs to somehow improve his king, somehow coordinate his two rooks. White's rooks are so far apart from each other.
Yeah, and all the while handling Black's kind of play on the left side. You know, Black is going to play knight takes pawn and then go for the weak B pawn.
Yeah, maybe even
Black's
rook
king can
takes
enter as well at some point.
Because if you can get rid of the rooks, the knight can come and, as Dave said, go for all those pawns on the queen side. I definitely prefer Black now, I feel. But,
Yeah. Still a pawn down temporarily, but easier to play for Black. And that's why Carlsen is so good, not just at classical chess, but also rapid and blitz, because he finds positions that objectively they might be a draw, but it's so much easier for him to find a plan. Black's plan is simple: grab a pawn, bring the Black king in, and Duda.
Look at the clocks, you
half a minute.
guys. Holy cow.
30 seconds now.
It's incredible.
And ticking down. Duda not confident. We saw that early on in the game. He was already shaking his head after the opening. And if you don't like your position, if it's not your style, that's an uphill struggle. 10 seconds now for Duda.
Yeah.
Okay, he just shuffles his rook.
What do you think right now? Do you think Magnus will win this game?
Yeah, I
Obviously
do.
looking at the clocks as well.
I think he's going to win this one, just because it's his
trend
ideal
is-
position and the time situation, so...
The trend is all in Black's favour. Black's just grabbed a pawn back. It's level material. And as Ivanka mentioned, the next target is easy. It's the B3 pawn. And
Duda is going to be
protected?
desperate as well. And when you're desperate, you don't objectively play the best moves. You maybe kind of go passive when you should go active. You don't have time to calculate to the best of your abilities. So, yeah, the heat is on for Duda. Okay, he moves his king.
The heat
but
is on. Down, now, 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 now. Down, now, now, now. Down, now. Thinking of songs we could play, you know? Could be quite a good one to play where you're putting a bit of pressure on your opponent.
Yeah, or under pressure.
now
Yeah.
Black knight is jumping in, attacking a pawn. White's bishop has had to go passive, and it's now time for the Black king to improve itself. Using every piece, Carlsen. It's so impressive. And how is White going to stop this infiltration of the Black king? The Black king is just going to use the dart squares. It's going to zigzag its way in towards those white pawns. And
There's only one move to kind of do anything about it, and I was just thought, go active, create chaos on the board, but he doesn't. He instead just moves his king up.
The heat is on. Down. Sorry.
Black king can just
Last
dance
time.
in now.
Yeah,
There you go.
and there it is. Here it comes.
Active kings in endgame, centralized kings. That's all we talk about, but it's for a reason. And now this is a check. Black can answer it by continuing to advance his king into the position, or he can even block this check with a pawn. Both look good, to be honest.
It looks horrible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
just-
I would be tempted to block it with a pawn,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep that king move.
It's the coordination. The coordination of
Pocket,
Black's
yeah.
pieces is so impressive. The knight, the king, the pawn, all centralised,
Yep.
all about to hit weaknesses. I mean, I think this could be the end. My only friend, the end.
You're in that mood now, Simon. Yeah, I think
Do you know the song? Great song.
No.
The Doors.
Oh, okay.
This is the end.
And I think we could see a result in a few moves if Magnus is accurate here. This last move is desperation from Duda. He's trying to undermine Black's central pawn. He's using a pin on the 4th rank. But again, the Black king could even step in. The Black knight can retreat if it needs to, just to defend Black's pawn in the middle of the board. Black's rook. Okay, what is Magnus going to play? He's hovering over his king with his mouse. He's going to bring his king in.
He's going to bring the king in. Yeah, I mean, also, I have to say, Magnus has all the time in the world. He's got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Duda has only 30 seconds. What's the technique? Do you keep your opponent hanging?
Well, I've done this. I mean, again, I always bring up my losses against David because they're so traumatic.
Sorry, man.
There's so many of them. But I remember when, I think you have to slow down. I mean, personally, if you've got a better position, then why risk it? But you can hustle a bit. I think if your position's bad, then you go quicker. But it depends on the situation. Here, Magnus doing well. There's no reason to rush. Saying that, I think he's seen a good plan and he's just playing it. So.
Yeah, there is some calculation to be done, however, because after this check, White's king is going to move. I'm not sure where. If we see a trade of rooks in the centre of the board, then we do have to calculate, is Black's knight able to go and grab a pawn on the B3 square, or is white's central pawn going to start running up the board? So trade of rooks or no trade of rooks? Magnus has to work this one out really carefully.
I mean, I guess just sliding the rook to the left here looks
that's
very
the simplest,
sensible way to play. Keep it active.
Because trading rooks, it's either very good or it's very bad. So that's the first thing you should look for, I guess, captures, threats, checks. But if it doesn't work, then yeah, as you mentioned, Simon, look for alternatives. Bring the rook across either to the centre or even the whole way to the.
But you're right.
file.
It's actually a moment where he's got the time, so he might as well work out. If rook takes, rook works, it wins. So why not spend a minute or two just working it out? It'd be, and you can just count basically there, can't you? Which pawn's going to queen first?
And also, if you don't have too much time, I mean, just be practical. Rook takes rook involves a lot of risk. You have to be precise. If you just slide your rook, you're still in control of your play. And again, white has no pass pawns.
Okay,
and
just to show, he does indeed slide his rook across. The alternative would have been rook takes rook and knight takes pawn, but then you do have to calculate a little bit about whether this pawn is quick enough. So he did choose the safe option. The rook slid across, and now Duda, desperation again. He doesn't give a check, which maybe we would have expected, partly because the black king can just move, but maybe even the black rook blocks. Instead, he pushed his pawn forward, and there's just one trick in the position. Knight takes pawn actually loses a piece, I think, after a rook check. And suddenly this is a skewer and the knight drops off to the white bishop or white rook next move. So only one trap in the position.
Maybe there's other trap if you check and then take the other pawn. Then Duda's got this potential fork.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Double attack, check, and hitting the knight, hitting the king. So actually two traps maybe. And Magnus just needs to avoid those. So he could do that maybe by bringing his rook in, offering a trade. At least Duda's fighting. He's fighting hard.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
It's dramatic for him. If he loses this, it's going to be over. Magnus will be the winner of the match, gaining 3 points and $7,500. It's going to be 0 points for Duda if he's not able to get at least a draw in this game. And the situation is actually the same between Jordan van Forest and the youngest player in the tournament, Pragnananda. The bar all the way over to his side. And the 16-year-old could be about to decide this after 3 games. You said it at the start of the day, David. Pragnananda is one of the players to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 16, but he's rising so fast. Yeah. I mean, he's accelerating. Due to COVID, he wasn't able to show how much he's been improving week by week. And he's on a hot streak as well, winning tournaments, as Simon said, in Reykjavik. And again, difficult opening for Pragnananda, but he's turned it around. He's a fighter. And he calculates so well, no weaknesses in his game, and he's on the brink of winning this match.
Does knight b2 just win here, by the way? Potentially. Just seeing this knight jump that Magnus might be able to play, and I'm not sure how white saves his bishop of that.
Yeah, that white bishop lacking squares.
There's so many great players, though. I mean, young players. It's so hard to predict which of them will potentially become a world champion.
Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just...
Oh, does it work? Did I nearly checkmate myself?
I
with rookie?
for a second.
I just spotted that as well. It's not a very good move, is it, actually? So, no, it does allow a big check. But, yeah, that's a good point. I always missed it.
No, it's actually on the board.
Oh, it's on the board?
Yeah,
right,
because
okay.
you can't, because the knight covers the critical square.
Right, so it's okay.
My heart jumped a little bit when I realised that possibility. But, OK, it's all good. I think the only way to save the game is for the white rook to drop back 1 square, give a check to the king.
And then you can swap the rooks off, right? That's the winning idea. OK.
Yeah, I think if the rooks disappear, yes, white's a pawn up, but actually it's more important that black is about to capture all of white's pawns on that left side of the board. And 10 seconds for Duda. He's got to give a check. It's forced. And as mentioned, a rook trade is inevitable. If white's rook runs away, the white bishop drops to the black knight. So a rook trade, and it's not just the fact that white's pawns are dropping, white's bishop as well. Terrible piece. No squares. And... OK, you have to bank everything now on your pawns. Knights are pretty bad at stopping these corner pawns, as I mentioned earlier. But at the very least, again, black's knight can go and capture some of them. You can step back with a check. You can go and capture another pawn.
Is it worth going on a detour and actually grabbing Harry, giving a check? Grab Harry, come back and complete the mission.
Tempting. But then the white king might get active.
Maybe you can even
calculation.
Maybe even centralise your king first, just to stop the white king coming forwards, and then you can go and do that plan.
Ooh, that's sadistic, Simon.
You've got to be in the ending, haven't you? You've got to be, yeah.
And look at that. Pragnananda, it's a win in Game 3, and that means he is the winner of that match against Jordan van Forest after only 3 games, winning 2 games. Pragnananda, the first player to gain 3 points in the Oslo Esports Cup. That is so impressive. As Magnus shakes his head, is he frustrated about something?
I think he's just trying to calculate there. I mean, I don't think there's anything to be frustrated about here in the position. He's got, I mean, it's these positions, a lot of it is just number crunching. You've just got to work out variations and you can go quite deep. And the first thing he's trying to calculate here is if he can go knight takes pawn. David might even be able to show it on the board, potentially when you have just a race situation. And they're I always recommend for people who are trying to learn that endings are very good, tactical endings, because they really help your tactical play, because there's only one variation you need to try and visualize, and you can go down it extremely deeply. But OK, has he played a move here, David?
Yeah, he's played a different move. He didn't go after these pawns, maybe because, as you mentioned, Simon, we would see a bit of a race. The pawns could step forward. And to be honest, I think this looks very good for Magnus. He could have stepped back and blockaded the white pawn's advance. But instead, he went for a different option. He went for the one you mentioned earlier, just getting rid of Harry, dropping back with a check. And after the king moves, I think he's about to take this pawn just to remove it off the board, remove all risk. But you do allow the white king to be active. This white king now slightly better placed. Maybe you could step forward with this pawn and trying to activate this bishop. Now you're hitting the knight. Maybe next move you can try and start bringing it to hit some other targets. But yeah, Magnus, he's the only one playing for the win. Duda fighting for the draw. With 10 seconds, it's still not easy to defend this position. I'm expecting to push the pawn because what else, simply? But not so easy for Magnus anymore.
Can you go king e4 and just run in, which is played?
I think as well. That's another option, and it's on the board. And 17 seconds left for Duda. Not a lot of time.
Oh, dramatic for him. And look at the bar in this game and in the game between Anish Giri and Erik Hansen. The bar jumping up for Erik Hansen, the lowest rated player in the tournament. Could be about to make a huge upset against Giri. Bunch of moves in this one.
Bunch of moves, and this one still looks very, very good now for black. And the reason I didn't mention that king advance earlier is because white's bishop actually got trapped. Which of course I did by the black king.
Which of course I did see. I completely missed that. I mean, I think the position was very bad, wasn't it?
It's very bad, yeah.
You know, just
maybe with best player you could have found some tricks or some way to save it, but not easy. And Magnus now, it's a pawn race. Both sides have pawns on this left side of the board, but the black knight, the key is it can drop back to help. And there we go. It's going to try and sacrifice itself for white's c-pawn, and then black's b-pawn is going to promote and win the game. Black is going to end up with a new queen. And look at the evaluation bar, nearly plus 16.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the big problem also is that the black king can take a step backwards and also cover some squares as well.
Yeah, I think
that check that David.
And look at that.